Hi, I'm Nate the House Whisperer, and I wanted to show you what electric usage looked like and how things operated during the cold snap that was just past. It was Christmas Eve of 2022. So I wanted to take a look at that for 3 different houses we have that run on heat pumps. So we're going to look at the game house, which was where I'm sitting now. Note the clue stuff in the background. This is one of our Airbnbs in Oak Hill, West Virginia. And then we'll look at the candy house, or the candy cottage, which is next door. This is 800 square feet here. The candy cottage is about 700, so they're little baby houses. They both have 1.5 ton Daikin fits. And then we will look at our house, which is about 15 minutes from here, and has a 2/3 ton Bosch heat pump, and then a Train air handler. So that's what we're going to look at. So here is the game house, and here is the total usage for December of 2022, if you see at the bottom here. So it used about 1,200 kilowatt hours, 333 for the heat pump, 293 for the AHU. This is air handler unit, or this is the fan, the indoor unit. But this has the resistance electric in it. So it will show as usage when it's resistance, because the normal amounts of fan. So this is 293. Keep an eye here, and I'll switch back to November. And this is Emporia, by the way. This is an Emporia view. I'll put a link below, because this is how you figure out what to be afraid of and what not to be afraid of. So normally the air handler is 48 kilowatt hours here for a month, over 30 days. So 1.5 per day, give or take. And so that is 25 cents a day to have clean air, because it's constantly running at low speed and running the air through the filter. You're also mixing it through the house. And in my case, I also have outdoor ducts coming in. So it's pulling in a little bit of outdoor air at the same time. Take a look at October as well, just so you can get an idea of what this looks like. Where is air handler? It's way down here, 17. So not very much. So the 48 was because it was doing enough heating to be running above your base low fan speed, which is where I normally have it set. And so this is 18 kilowatt hours for October as opposed to 48 for November. So just so you get a comparison. And then moving back to December, we're at 300. So you figure it's 50, so we use like 250 kilowatt hours of resistance, something like that. So minus the 48 or whatever. So somewhere in that ballpark. All this stuff, you can at least get a general idea of where it is. And if it's 240 versus 270 kilowatt hours, who cares? It doesn't matter. We're arguing over a couple of bucks. It's not a big deal. So let's go back and take a look at hourly for this house. And then I'm going to click down here, graphs. And so you can see hour by hour what's going on. And so the resistance has been running a little bit here. So like the lower hours, so let's see, that hour there, about 1 kilowatt hour per hour, that's actually still on the high side. Oh, I somehow got on Mountain Escape. How did I do that? Looking at the wrong house. Mountain Escape is our house. So here's the heat pump. We'll come at it this way. So we'll look at the heat pump, and I need to scroll back quite a bit. And so here we are, Wednesday, 12/21. And so you can see in this case, this is where I screwed up. So game house heat pump. The temperature went below 15 degrees, which is where the Daikin fit is set up to stock turn the heat pump off and go to resistance. So note that it went to almost no usage at 7 a.m. So overnight, Thursday the 22nd into Friday the 23rd, the temperature dropped. And so I screwed up. So, and I realized it, but it was it was basically Christmas Eve. So I I realized this at night, this night on Friday, and then I called a friend, and he came over and made adjustments to the thermostat. But this section here was handled entirely by resistance. I don't have a big one on this house. I have 5 kW. Which is one of the smallest heat strips you can get. And then you can see the heat pump usage went up. But it is odd, it didn't go up enough in this period. It's a 1.5 ton, so it should be able to use 1.5 kilowatt hours per hour. And note that oftentimes it wasn't, and I don't know exactly what happened here. Something happened here. But it was using less than I was expecting and running resistance. So I've got some sort of a setting that I need to figure out what's going on. I made some changes yesterday. We'll see if it works. The curse is you don't really know until it gets really cold again, which this is why it's difficult to learn new equipment, because you don't know what settings do what. And that's really tricky. So you have to watch a system quite a bit, or better yet, be in the house like I am. We like just coming here sometimes when the units aren't rented and just spending time here. So we're living next door for a week at the Candy Cottage, and I'm coming over here to do some work and videos and things like that. So every day or every hour here is 1.5 kilowatt hours or so. So that is what the heat pump was doing through there, and it stayed cold through Christmas basically. And then you can see it got warm just after Christmas, and see that the usage per hour dropped to under 0.4. So not very much. And the max that this can pull is about 1.5 kilowatt hours per hour, somewhere in that range. Okay, so let's go look at the resistance for this period. Let's see, can I... graphed circuit, Gamehouse, AHU. I have to zoom back, so looking at the bottom, we're in December, we're in January, back to February. Now, basically, every 1,000 watts or every kW, it's a kilowatt hour. So if you're pulling 1 kilowatt, which is 1,000 watts, and you pull it for an hour, you just pulled 1 kilowatt hour. This is a 5 kW backup, and it's oftentimes, it's like a hair more, like it pulls like 5,100 watts or 5,200 watts. It's not exactly 5,000, and actually the other 100 or 200 is going to be the fan, while the fan is running with this on. So you can see, remember how I showed where the heat pump just stopped working? So you can see the air handler's using almost no power over here. So we're using 0.04 of a kilowatt hour per hour for the fan. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're using 4 and 5 kilowatt hours per hour. So this is the resistance hitting. And it almost kept up. It got pretty cold here. So design temperature here is 11 degrees, which means 99% of the year we are above 11. We got down to just below 0 here. And so this is beyond design. So technically, the temperature is allowed to slide. It's easy enough to usually have a little extra resistance to prevent that from happening. But I needed the resistance and the heat pump to be able to hold temperature. And I only had resistance in this case. So 5 kW works out to about 17,000 BTUs. The heat pump is 18,000 BTUs on this. So you can see I was matching that up in doing that. So there was a bunch of electricity used right in this period. So actually, let's look at by day. And yeah, here we are, 88 kilowatt hours that day. And then more like 75 the day after. So you can see there's been a little bit of resistance getting hit, but not a whole heck of a lot. Those were the bad days because it was cold. Like yesterday, it wasn't that cold, but if you ask for a big temperature difference and it's kind of cold, oftentimes you'll engage resistance and it'll do it. So I used 14 kilowatt hours yesterday. So this is what that looks like. So this was an ugly day. It just was. And in fact, I can go back and we can look at by day, and you can click this up. And this is challenging to do. Like, this is something that would be better to have more of a slider. Well, let's see. I haven't tried. Oh yeah, this works. Okay, great. This is a new feature. It wasn't here last time I played with this. So December 24th, Christmas Eve. So this is our house in Ohio, the River House. It's still on resistance. I just bought a heat pump for it, but we got to save the money to have it installed. But the Mountain Escape, this is our house, used 55 kilowatt hours, but we were gone and I had it set to 60 degrees, so it wasn't working that hard. And it also has a larger heat pump. The game house used a bunch of juice that day, 125 kilowatt hours. Now, this isn't actually totally obscene. One of my clients bought the 5-stage carrier heat pump, which shuts the heat pump off below 2, and we spent a while below 2, and it doesn't turn it back on until you get to 7. So he ran a couple days. So he had one day where he used 250 kilowatt hours. So that was an expensive day. You know, that cost $35, $40 to heat the house that day. But that's one day out of 365 days. So it's going to happen. There's going to be a few days that are ugly. It just is. It doesn't matter what fuel you're using. It's going to be expensive. But it doesn't help that was resistance, but I let him know what the option was. And then I asked him, so did you regret buying the cheaper one? Because the next step up was like $2,000 more. I was like, nah, it's fine. He just wanted to whine and complain at me. Pretty normal. We have a fun relationship. So the candy house used 79 this day. The day before, it's going to be quite a bit less. Let's go to the 23rd. So see, the candy house only used 41 this day, and I can put this down, and the heat pump used 21. Where the game house, the heat pump only used 4 because it got cold and shut off the heat pump. And so it ran a ton of resistance, see 88 kilowatt hours of resistance. So that's what happened that day with it. Now let's go look at the candy house, and we'll look at the air handler. And look at that. The air handler normally doesn't use all that much. So 25 or 30 kilowatt hours per month. And this is pretty amazing because remember, the way that I have this set up, these houses both have what we call badass HVAC. Well, not quite. They don't have reheat dehumidification. I have little dehumidifiers as extra. But these run the air handler all the time, so you get continuous mixing. So you're stirring the house and it helps reduce temperature variations between rooms. You're filtering the air because you're constantly running that air through a very good filter. So you're knocking the dust and the garbage out. And then I have, on both of these houses, there are 2 fresh air ducts. So one is open basically all the time, and the other one is only open when the air quality monitor notices that the VOCs get too high of volatile organic compounds. So for 25 or 30 kilowatt hours per month, or like $5 a month, you get a cleaner, healthier home. So to me, that's pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, literally the price of a cup of coffee. It's just not a big deal. So 139 kilowatt hours it used of resistance last month. And this month we have stayed out of resistance at the candy house for the most part. I saw a little bit of it yesterday. Again, the way to look at resistance is it's like an afterburner in a jet. So your main engine, the heat pump, is the one that's doing most of the work. But every so often you want to go faster, you need more power, and that's where the afterburner or the resistance comes in underneath and bumps it up. Unless you screw up the commissioning, which is what I did because I've never used these units before. And like typical guy, I didn't read the freaking manual. So I learned this way. I like looking through the thermostat to try and understand what's going on. And I didn't know you had to add the equipment of the resistance back up. I'm used to playing with Carrier, where when you put it in, it sees everything that's there and it lets you set everything up. So it's just a difference in equipment. It's considerably less expensive for this equipment, which is why I wanted to try it. Plus, they had a 1.5 ton size, and I knew 1.5 was about what these houses were going to need. So sorry for the rambling, but there's a lot of like little details hiding underneath here. So the air handler ended up using 139 kilowatt hours minus 25 or so for the fan. So 115, something like that, kilowatt hours of resistance we used last month. But the resistance was not turned on. I screwed that up. and the candy house slid down to 52 degrees in that cold period. But I could tell that it was not going to freeze, so I waited until the next day to send my friend over to make the changes. Okay, so let's then check the heat pump at the candy house. So it used a decent chunk last month, but 269 kilowatt hours, that is for the whole month to keep the house warm. That's November here too. So that's really not that bad. This is $35. And, $1 a day to keep the house warm. Now, it was pretty mild that month. December, this is what I want to look at, 421. So December was relatively mild, but then we had that snap at the end. And then so far, what are we? We're almost halfway through January, and we're at 84 kilowatt hours of resistance, or of heat pump usage. So this is what we're looking at, just showing you what we got. And hour by hour for the candy house heat pump. That's interesting. It was warm enough, it just didn't hardly run. Get back in here. So this heat pump again maxes at 1.5 tons. It's basically 1,000 watts per ton. So a 1.5 ton is going to max somewhere around 1,500 watts. I've seen these pull 1,800 because they can run the compressor extra fast to pull more. And they're supposed to have full output to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is another reason I chose them. And let's see, where are we? Let's get back into... So this is where it got cold. And this hour here, where it didn't use anything, I'm pretty sure we were playing with settings. So the temperature was falling in the house. We were playing with settings between 11, 12, maybe 12 and 1 this day. Or am I looking at the wrong day? No, sorry, it was Christmas Eve, I think, that we actually played with it. But in any case, you can see the heat pump getting up to about 1.5, and then it wasn't running flat out here for some reason. I don't really understand why, although this might be... I thought that it had changed it, but I made a dumb screw up on this. When you have a 220 device, you only clamp one of the sides of the circuit, but if it shares a neutral, the pull on them is identical. So you take whatever the pull is from one of the circuits and you double it, and that's what you get. So you can make your CT clamps go further. You don't need to have 2 clamps on a 220 device. You only need to have 1 and then multiply it times 2. Except for I didn't multiply it times 2. I left it at 1. And I was wondering why it was only pulling half the power of the candy house next door. So this may actually be inaccurate. I thought that it went back and doubled stuff, but I'm not entirely sure. So... because like over here, it looks like it is. So we're getting to 1.5 kilowatt hours per hour, which is about as much as it can pull. But then it's interesting, like it goes back and forth a little bit. So this might have been hitting a bunch of defrost cycles, something like that. But anyway, you can look at this and get an idea of what's going on. So then lastly, let's take a look at our house, which again was set at 60 degrees. And what do I have it set to month here? So let's go to graphs. So last month used 1,227 kilowatt hours. Let's just chart the heat pump. So far, halfway into the month, we've used 250 kilowatt hours. So $40 thus far. So if we stay there, we're on pace for about $80 a month. Oh, come on, honey. There we are. Last month, used 771 kilowatt hours. So last year, you can see this one that was high, so November, December. This is January. January may be bad, but man, it's been mild again. So I don't know, maybe February will be bad. And we still have 20 days left in the month, so may get cold and drive the usage up quite a bit. That's anybody's ball game. But the most that it used last year was 1,150 kilowatt hours, which isn't that bad. That's $150, $160, something like that for the heaviest heat month of the year. Not a big deal. And I'll look at resistance as well. The air handler. See, it's way down here. So that month it used, so there was 1,150 for the heat pump, and it used 243 for the air handler. So the majority of that's going to be resistance, because this was the only month that it really did much resistance. A little bit the next month, but not much. And it got into a little bit of resistance in November. There was a cold snap around Thanksgiving this year as well. We were gone, but there was a cold snap. And then again in December, so there's a little bit. This is resistance doing what it's supposed to do, just kind of picking up underneath on the bottom as needed. And it really hasn't used much. So the air handler at that house, so looking at the normal months, 30 kilowatt hours, kilowatt hour per day to have clean, fresh air. Doesn't suck. So again, $5 a month. And that's pretty consistent of what we see. You know, it might be $10 a month, maybe, but it's somewhere between 5 and 10 for basically all of our clients. I don't think I've seen an exception. And that is, you need to have a system where the fan is running relatively low speed and the ductwork can handle the airflow. But like in this house, this is a double wide. It's a manufactured home. And I didn't change the ductwork. I thought that I would, and I saw how much power the air handler was pulling, and it's just not that much. And I'm like, you know what, it's fine. We're just going to run with it. So that's what we've done. I'm not that worried about it. Spend the money where the money matters. And considering we have renovated 3 houses and a camper in a little over a year, we've needed the money elsewhere. So that's what's going on. But this gives you an idea of what's going on. You know, here's the energy use, the Christmas Eve, if you will. And then Christmas Eve. Now it was cold. I'm trying to think I think it was Monday. So Christmas was Saturday. So you can see the usage is coming down here. We don't have anything that's over 100 at all Christmas Day. Day after Christmas, we're still halfway reasonable. Now, one thing to note, I've noticed this consistently. The day after a cold snap, all the building materials are cold, so the house still uses a bunch of energy to warm everything back up. That's pretty common. Even with the houses with a good shell, you still have to warm the building materials back up. And then 2 days after Christmas, you can see energy use is dropping down to 50 or less, basically. I got 53, but things are down quite a bit considering the game house was 125 on the cold snap day. So just gives you an idea of what's going on. Maybe this is too much to give all at once, but hey, you're not paying for this. So I just wanted to go over these couple of houses and see what the Christmas cold snap looked like. So hope you found this interesting and helpful. And if you don't have an Emporia and you're curious about any of this, if you're even somewhat handy, it's definitely an install you can do yourself. And if you're worried about it, then call an electrician. But not that long ago, this monitoring cost $1,000 to do. Like 5 years ago, the products were $1,000 to have the same capabilities. Now this is $160. And if you use the link below, you get 5% off. So it's an affiliate link. Hope this is helpful, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.